One of the most confusing things for parents and teachers is seeing a child who is clearly bright, but who struggles with reading, writing, or spelling. You might hear things like, they understand everything when you talk to them, or they have great ideas, but they can't get them down on paper. This can lead to frustration, worry, and sometimes the belief that a child just isn't trying hard enough. But this is a very common situation, actually, and it's also very explainable. So in this video, I want to explain why so many bright children struggle with literacy, what's really going on beneath the surface, and how understanding this can help us support children more effectively. If you find these videos helpful, you can support the channel by liking the video or subscribing. This really helps get this information out to reach more people who need it. So let's get started. So when we describe a child as bright, we're usually talking about their thinking, curiosity, or understanding. But being bright does not mean that learning will be easy in every area. So literacy is not a single skill. It relies on a range of specific processes in the brain, many of which are separate from intelligence. This is why a child can be articulate, imaginative, and quick to understand new ideas, but still find reading, writing, or spelling very difficult. When we expect literacy to come easily just because a child is bright, we can accidentally create pressure and confusion for both adults and children. So understanding that intelligence and literacy are not the same thing helps us move away from frustration and towards appropriate support. Reading and writing might look simple on the surface, but literacy is actually a very complex process. It involves several different skills working together at the same time. These include phonological processing, which is recognizing and working with the sounds in words, working memory, which is holding information in our heads while we're using it, processing speed, which is how quickly information is taken in and then used, language processing, which is understanding and using vocabulary and sentence structure, visual verbal integration, which is linking what we see with language. And a difficulty in just one of these areas can make literacy feel hard, even for very bright children. And because these skills are often hidden, the struggle isn't always obvious. So understanding how complex literacy really is helps explain why intelligence alone doesn't guarantee success in reading and writing. Many bright children develop ways of coping with literacy difficulties. They might use strong vocabulary, good reasoning, or memory to compensate, especially in the early years. Because of this, they can appear to be managing even when reading and writing feels hard. Some children learn to guess words based on context, or they avoid reading and writing tasks. They can rely on support from adults or from their peers, and they work very hard just to keep up. But over time, this constant effort can become exhausting. Struggles may only become obvious when the work becomes more demanding, so as they go higher up in the years in the primary school, it becomes more obvious. And as the work becomes harder, the reading gets longer, writing expectations increase, and there's more time pressure added on top. And this is why many bright children are identified later, not because they didn't struggle before, but because they've been masking their difficulties, and as the demands of school have gotten harder, the mask is starting to slip, and that's when we start identifying them as having literacy difficulties. There isn't just one reason why a bright child might struggle with literacy. For many children, literacy difficulties are linked to underlying learning differences. This might include dyslexia, where processing written language is more difficult. It could also be ADHD, where attention, working memory, and organization affect reading and writing tasks. Some children may have language-based differences, such as developmental language disorder, which can affect how language is understood and used. Others may have processing speed differences, meaning they need more time to take in and work with information. Very often, these profiles overlap. That's what we would call co-occurring. So a child might show features of more than one of these differences, which is why we need to use a needs-led approach. When bright children struggle with literacy, it often shows up in very specific ways at school. So a child might give thoughtful answers when speaking, but struggle with written work. They could have strong ideas, but find it hard to organize them on paper. They can read slowly or avoid reading altogether. They can tire quickly during writing tasks, and they can become frustrated, anxious, or disengaged. Because the child is bright, these difficulties can be confusing, and adults may wonder why the child can explain something so clearly, but can't seem to show the same understanding in writing. And over time, this mismatch can affect confidence. Children may begin to feel that something is wrong with them, even though their difficulties are not a reflection of their ability or intelligence. And understanding these signs can help us to respond with support rather than pressure. Supporting bright children who struggle with literacy is not about lowering expectations. It's about removing unnecessary barriers and teaching skills explicitly. What helps most is clear, structured literacy teaching, breaking reading and writing tasks down into manageable steps, reducing memory and processing load, allowing extra time if a child needs it, and using assistive technology where appropriate. It's also important to recognize and value a child's strengths. So a child who struggles with literacy may be creative, curious, highly verbal, and strong in problem solving. When support builds on these strengths, learning becomes more accessible and less overwhelming. The goal is not to make children try harder. The goal is to help them access learning in a way that works for their brain. If you're a child or young person watching this and reading or writing feels hard for you, I want you to know something important. Struggling with literacy does not mean you are not clever. It does not mean that you are lazy, and it does not mean that you are failing. You just learn in a different way. You might be really good at thinking, talking, imagining, or solving problems. Even if reading and writing feels hard right now, with the right support and with adults who understand how you learn, things get easier. Your strengths still matter. You are capable of learning and succeeding. For parents, carers, and teachers, seeing a bright child struggle with literacy can be worrying and frustrating. It can raise questions like, why is this so hard for them? Or, are we missing something? Understanding how literacy difficulties are not a reflection of intelligence helps shift how we respond. Instead of pushing harder or increasing pressure, we can focus on identifying what support is needed. Early understanding and appropriate support can protect a child's confidence and emotional well-being, and prevent small difficulties from becoming bigger barriers later on. When we take a needs-led approach, we stop asking, why can't this child do this? And we start asking, what does this child need in order to learn? And that shift can make a lasting difference. Many bright children struggle with literacy, not because they lack ability, but because literacy relies on specific processing skills. When we understand this, we can move away from frustration and towards support that actually helps. If you'd like more information, resources, or support, you can visit my website. The link is down below. If you find these videos helpful, you can support the channel by liking the video and subscribing for more calm, clear content about neurodiversity and learning. Thank you for watching, and remember, difference does not mean deficit.